Members of the public have been closely following developments in the ongoing proceedings involving General Phahlane, where tensions surfaced after allegations were raised about the conduct of the evidence leader. During the session, MK Party Member of Parliament, Nomvalo, formally objected to what he described as improper conduct by evidence leader Norman Arens. Nomvalo told the chairperson that Arens was allegedly acting beyond the scope of his role by prosecuting rather than questioning General Phahlane. He further claimed that the evidence leader was raising issues he had prior knowledge of and engaging with the witness in a manner that included shouting. The exchange unfolded in what appeared to be a charged atmosphere, prompting Nomvalo to request the chairperson's intervention. The matter centers on the role and responsibilities of an evidence leader in such proceedings. Evidence leaders are typically tasked with presenting information, guiding witnesses through relevant issues, and ensuring that facts are placed on record in an orderly and structured manner. They are not prosecutors in the traditional sense, and their mandate generally involves questioning to clarify issues rather than pursuing adversarial cross-examination. Nomvalo argued that Arens' conduct allegedly crossed this boundary. According to Nomvalo, the tone and approach adopted by the evidence leader suggested that he was prosecuting General Phahlane instead of facilitating a fair questioning process. Nomvalo also took issue with what he described as the introduction of matters that Arens allegedly knew about beforehand. The MK Party MP suggested that raising such issues during questioning, despite prior knowledge, could be seen as prejudicial or indicative of an unfair line of inquiry. He further alleged that Arens was shouting at General Phahlane during the proceedings. Nomvalo characterized this as inappropriate and potentially intimidating to the witness. On this basis, he formally appealed to the chairperson to intervene and restore order. The chairperson's role in such settings typically involves ensuring decorum, maintaining fairness, and safeguarding the rights of all participants. Interventions by a chairperson may include directing participants to adhere to procedural guidelines, moderating tone and language, and clarifying the scope of questioning. At the time of Nomvalo's complaint, the primary issue placed before the chairperson was whether the evidence leader's conduct was consistent with the procedural framework governing the proceedings. General Phahlane, who was the witness at the center of the exchange, remained the subject of questioning. The session was part of broader proceedings aimed at examining matters linked to his role and conduct in relation to issues under review. While Nomvalo's remarks were firm, they were framed as concerns regarding fairness and procedural integrity. He did not allege criminal wrongdoing by the evidence leader, but focused instead on what he described as conduct that allegedly undermined the neutral and investigative nature of the process. Norman Arens, serving as evidence leader, occupies a position that requires balancing thorough inquiry with impartiality. In many formal settings, evidence leaders are expected to test evidence robustly while avoiding the appearance of bias or adversarial overreach. Nomvalo's intervention highlighted a broader principle that is central to such proceedings: the distinction between investigative questioning and prosecutorial conduct. He suggested that blurring this distinction could compromise the fairness of the hearing. The allegation that Arens was raising issues he allegedly knew about beforehand adds another layer to the dispute. In procedural terms, prior knowledge of matters does not automatically imply impropriety. However, concerns may arise if such knowledge is perceived to influence the manner or tone of questioning. Nomvalo's objection appeared to rest on the belief that the approach taken could create an impression of prejudgment. He indicated that fairness required questions to be posed in a measured and neutral manner without suggestive or accusatory undertones. The claim that the evidence leader was shouting at the witness was also presented as a matter of concern. In formal hearings, maintaining composure and professional conduct is considered essential to preserving the integrity of the process. Allegations of raised voices or confrontational behavior can prompt scrutiny regarding decorum. By requesting the chairperson's intervention, Nomvalo sought a procedural remedy rather than an immediate substantive ruling on the issues under discussion. His appeal suggested that he believed the chairperson had the authority to regulate the tone and direction of questioning. Observers note that disputes over conduct are not uncommon in high-profile or sensitive proceedings, Participants may differ in their interpretation of what constitutes robust questioning versus adversarial prosecution. The MK Party MP's statement did not provide detailed examples of specific questions or remarks that formed the basis of his objection. Instead, he characterized the overall conduct of the evidence leader as allegedly improper. General Phahlane's response to the questioning at that moment was not detailed in the exchange that prompted Nomvalo's complaint. However, witnesses in such settings are typically afforded the opportunity to respond to questions fully and to seek clarification if needed. The procedural framework governing such proceedings often includes guidelines designed to ensure that questioning remains relevant and respectful. These guidelines may empower the chairperson to intervene if lines of inquiry stray beyond the scope of the mandate or if conduct becomes disruptive. Nomvalo's remarks were framed within this procedural context. He did not dispute the right of the evidence leader to ask questions, but challenged what he perceived as the manner and intent behind those questions. The distinction between vigorous questioning and prosecutorial conduct can sometimes be subjective. What one participant views as thorough inquiry may be perceived by another as adversarial or prejudicial. In making his objection, Nomvalo emphasized the importance of maintaining a fair environment for the witness. He implied that a perceived imbalance in tone or approach could undermine confidence in the proceedings. Norman Aarons' position as evidence leader places him at the center of this debate. The role demands clarity, firmness, and attention to detail, particularly when addressing complex or contentious issues. However, it also requires adherence to principles of fairness and neutrality. The chairperson's response to the request for intervention would likely hinge on an assessment of whether procedural standards were breached. Such assessments are typically based on observable conduct and the established rules of engagement. Legal observers often stress that procedural fairness is not only about outcomes, but also about appearances. Maintaining public confidence may depend on ensuring that proceedings are seen to be impartial and orderly. Nomvalo's complaint underscores the sensitivity surrounding the examination of General Phahlane. Any perception of hostility or prejudgment could have implications for how the process is viewed by the public. It is important to note that allegations of improper conduct do not automatically establish wrongdoing. They represent one participant's perspective and are subject to review or response within the procedural framework. In the absence of a formal ruling on the matter at that moment, the allegation remains a contested claim. The evidence leader may have his own interpretation of the interaction and the necessity of his approach. The episode highlights the dynamic nature of formal hearings, where legal, political, and procedural considerations intersect. Participants may differ sharply on matters of tone, scope, and method. For South African audiences, the incident serves as a reminder of the importance of maintaining standards of fairness in public proceedings. Whether in parliamentary contexts, commissions of inquiry, or disciplinary hearings, the balance between rigorous examination and respectful engagement is a recurring theme. Nomvalo's intervention can be viewed as part of the broader oversight function exercised by members of Parliament. By raising concerns during proceedings, MPs may seek to ensure that processes adhere to expected norms. At the same time, evidence leaders are often tasked with probing inconsistencies or testing the credibility of testimony. Such probing can involve challenging questions that may feel confrontational to those involved. The central issue raised by Nomvalo is whether the line between probing and prosecuting was allegedly crossed. As proceedings continue, the chairperson's handling of the complaint may shape the tone of future sessions. Clear guidance on permissible conduct can help prevent similar disputes. For now, the matter stands as an allegation raised by an MK Party MP against the evidence leader during questioning of General Phahlane. The claims include assertions that Aarons allegedly acted as a prosecutor rather than an evidence leader, introduced matters he knew about beforehand, and raised his voice at the witness. The request for intervention reflects concerns about maintaining procedural integrity and decorum. Whether the chairperson found grounds to intervene would depend on an assessment of the conduct in question and the applicable rules. In high-stakes proceedings, such disputes are often resolved through clarification and reaffirmation of procedural boundaries. Ensuring that all parties feel heard and treated fairly remains central to the credibility of the process. As developments unfold, attention is likely to remain focused not only on the substance of General Phahlane's testimony, but also on the manner in which questioning is conducted. The outcome of the proceedings may depend as much on procedural fairness as on the facts under examination. For now, the allegations remain part of the record, reflecting a moment of tension during an already significant hearing.